I can't lose fingers. I'm going to community college.
You need at least one.
Just a thumb to get there. Not a sound in the South Hills till I start setting up the equipment, and then fucking this pink face fucking albino up the hill drags out a weed eater about 5 minutes ago, stares at me, and I go, oh fuck no, and so he's on the other side of the house right now, but earlier I saw a semi truck rolling in with a fucking fucking caterpillar or whatever, a fucking it's
like
gonna
a backhoe
be loud.
or something.
Yeah,
like
backhoe
something
and
you
shit.
sit in, and it's got the
Right.
bucket and everything.
Yeah. Fucking, I can't think of the bulldozer. I was thinking bulldyke, and it's it's
ditch
not a
witch.
bulldyke.
A ditch witch.
No, it's a backhoe.
Kubota.
Anyway,
do we want a brand name, or
you're just naming brand names now, Shane?
I didn't hit the button.
Caterpillar.
You buzzed
John
in
Deere.
too early.
John Deere.
Yeah, Caterpillar.
I love that Andy gets mad at more irrationally than even me. He's dirty looking at guy for weed whacking like he should know better. I'm about to podcast, motherfucker. You're gonna weed whack?
I'm gonna get like those fucking balloons and put up on air. It's like fucking little. We're all experiencing difficulties during this quarantine, but and I thought people, there's a whole fucking work crew up above me on the hill here, and I stagger up. It's hard to get up the hillside. There's not really a trail or anything, but I clomped up there, and I see this fucking fatty, holding a sign. I go, hey man, what gives? And he goes. He's looked at me and he goes, "What do you mean? What's going on up here?" And I go,
I mean that's a fair question.
Yeah.
Well,
you just sure.
Come up from the hill and go, what gives?
It's like
should be an introduction.
I know.
Some sort.
Sure.
What's your job description, sir?
I was pissed off when I got there, so I'm like, what's this all about here? Was my next thought. What's all this here about? And I go, how long do you think you're going to be up here doing this? And he goes, and then you can tell he's the dumb guy on the crew or whatever. And he goes, anywhere from an hour to a week. So, and he goes, it all depends on if we can find the gas line. So it's like, okay, great. And then there's been all manner of rattling and fucking noise, jackhammers. And now it all quit right before this started. So I'm like on the edge that it's gonna start up again, and then I have a feeling by the end of this, weed eater guy's gonna be right up here, and that fucking equipment's gonna be going full bore, and I'll bet they find the gas line.
Well, you'll know if they find
that microphone is.
What's that?
Oh, I was saying, how good do you think that microphone is? We're not gonna hear shit up the hill.
Yeah,
we barely hear you.
I know. It's like, but it's just like I'm trying to, unwind out here, smoke a bowl and relax before going to work. It's like my commute's a mess.
Have you thought about maybe just talking to the neighbor and telling him what you do rather than just jumping down his throat or fucking water ballooning him with gasoline bombs or something?
This isn't a kind of neighborhood where you talk to neighbors. You yell at them from up above. I mean, we're all on. It's like we're all on different tiers, This guy could,
Is there like a caste system? Deer
fences. Andy's Slumdog level right now.
Yeah, everybody's got deer fences, so it's like we're all in our private prisons, But I got a gate that I can go up into their prisons a little bit, but I don't want to.
I think if there's any sort of noise in your neighborhood, we'll just call it ambiance and move on.
Oh, there's Weed Eater guy. Hey, faggot. Go ahead, asshole. Go ahead, use your poo-on Weed Eater.
I think it should be more hello neighbor, not hey faggot. I think hello neighbor is probably a better entry.
This is the guy who came down to my driveway to find out who owned the dog that was barking at the chickens and raised, it's like, I'm the chicken owner, but the dog ain't mine. And then he's like, it's like, what are you going to, what answer are you looking for, man? What if I did have the dog and the chickens,
So people do communicate.
Yeah.
You just said they just yell down from across the deer fence.
Okay. And then, one time there was a guy, I was up the hill here and I saw some free plants. There's a sign actually that said free, and then there were plants up near it.
Did you make the sign?
No.
Put it out there?
No, but I wasn't like looking like, holy shit, man, that's a hot looking roadie sitting up there. It was leggy and a ratty looking roadie, but it was free. So I backed up my car up there and I threw the roadie and a couple other things that were sitting around there near the free sign in my car.
Plants?
Right.
The free sign, it means in the yard.
Yeah, a couple of them were bulb based, but this was, and then I took a leggy roadie. It was in a pot, and then I took it, and I planted it, and then I was driving down the hill one morning, and then I came up and I saw this guy, and he was like paying a way too close attention to the blue Subaru, or like, I know it's a cool looking car, dude, but but he's just like, checking it out, and then and then he's a jogger, so then I pull in my driveway. And then I'm out there, and then this guy comes up, the guy who spotted me, and he's like, hey, man, I think you took some of my plants. Right? Like, fuck, I thinking weed or,
Did the sign say free plant or free plants?
It just said free.
Oh, that's his fault.
So it was probably an old chair with a sign that said free leaning against it. Somebody took the old chair and Andy just went up and took plants.
He said that was sitting on a toilet. Well, there was no toilet around when I went up there. There was just these plants. So I took these, and I'd already planted them. And the guy's like, and I was like, well, there it is. I go, you're free to take it. Like no harm, It's like, and then he goes, well, I'm going to go talk to my wife about it. And then I never heard from him again. But it's like, so I do know the neighbors.
Yeah, that guy's fucking crazy. Don't talk to him anymore.
Hey, there's some black-eyed Susans I wouldn't mind digging a start of.
I love that when someone confronts Andy about, hey, you took my plants, after he just took plants off of someone else's property, he thought, did I steal someone's weed? Yeah. He didn't even think about it as he's digging the hole for the fucking rhododendron. He didn't even think about the crime at his feet. He thought, did I steal weed that I didn't remember?
Well, it's like when I went to Trader Joe's. There was like a short line. I got there early and I was like, oh, wow, they're already letting people in. And I went in and did my shopping and came out. And then I saw the sign that I kind of noticed it, but I didn't read it. It's like a big sign there, and it says, and it says senior citizens and people who need assistance only. And then there was a line of, people that I would have normally flocked with, but all lined up. But it was like, hey, man, I don't give a fuck. I look old, I got a mask on and I'm hunched over. I got my groceries done, and I didn't have to stand in line. But if I'd have paid attention to it beforehand, I would have known I couldn't do that, and I would have felt guilty about it, and I would have done it anyway.
When Andy says he noticed
instead of just after.
When Andy says he noticed the sign but didn't read it, that's what toddlers and people who don't know how to read do.
Well, here's what I was doing. I was sitting in my handicap parking spot right in front of the place.
Another sign you just noticed.
Smoking the bowl, listening to Steve Miller, the Joker, and then I noticed the people coming out of the store, and I was like, oh fuck, and and I went in there, and it was like I was kind of annoyed at all the people. There wasn't a lot of, there's a limited number of people, but it was like, god damn, all these old people and people, somebody brought a blind person shopping. What the fuck is this all about?
What is this, the group home happy hour? Oh fuck, it is.
Yeah, it's like a Disneyland. You want to push somebody around in a wheelchair so you can front load,
Jenny just sent me to the Family Dollar store up the road just before I got on here for an essential run. the grandkids needed a swimming pool. So I had to run up there. I probably ended up getting the COVID because while I was getting it, a lady in a mask walked by me, breathing so poorly that I wanted to she needed a ventilator probably. She was breathing so bad. I was like, you shouldn't be in the dollar store, lady. But I shouldn't be either, so fuck it.
What's the one I was reading about, Brett, this morning? Was it Dollar General?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dollar General.
Family Dollar, I think. Yeah, the same one I went in. They don't require us to wear masks because we're not in a fucking huge fucking place. You know what I mean?
Goodwill shut it down because they know there's no way the retarded people that work there are going to understand how to wash their hands. You know,
they just be wrapping old shirts around their mouths.
Yeah. There's no way to contain COVID in a Goodwill store.
The Family Dollar I was at had signs all over saying to stay 6 feet apart from everybody.
Well, those are only effective if you read them.
Well, yeah, I noticed it and I read it, so I did.
I like that Andy sees a sign and before he can even accidentally read it, his mind goes, probably nothing but bad news on that thing.
I don't even know how it's possible to see a sign and not read it.
I know.
Sometimes if the closed captioning is up on a TV show, I get pissed off because I can't help but read it and I miss the whole show.
Right. It's like when you hear, how they don't tell the president something because they want to make sure he's got plausible deniability. Andy's got that going inside of his own head. Like he sees a sign and part of his own brain says, "Don't read that, sir. We want you to be able to not know that because you'll be able to use that as the defense."
The handicap sign is color coded. It's just blue and at the front of a parking spot. You don't even need to read it.
But that's the thing is I have a handicap permit. So I park. I mean, that's like, it's been a real bummer to have a wife that's handicapped, but there's one perk. And it's that I no longer have to look for a parking spot. There's one assigned to us, and she's not with me most times. But in theory, I could be picking her up, or I could have a mental illness, or I could have arthritis.
A mental illness that requires you to park closer to the door?
It's called impatience.
Yeah,
that might be what I have. Fuck.
Once I get real angry, it just keeps, getting worse and worse. So if I park up there,
I did just scare the shit out of the people in the dollar store while I was there because we were all being good and maintaining 6 feet. But as I was walking up, I noticed the teller is talking to the lady that's at the front and they're friends. She's all checked out, has a bag of dollar store shit and is having a personal conversation. Then I looked over 6 feet behind her and there's this lesbian lady just standing there all patient, waiting. So I walk all the way listening to their conversation. I stand 6 feet behind the lesbian lady, and then they change topics and start up another one. And I look at the lady. I look at the lady and I go, "Really?" And she goes, "Apparently so." And I look behind me. By this time, there's a dude 6 feet behind me. We're going down the freezer line now. And so I just yelled. I just said, "Hey, you have a line back here!" And everybody jumped. I just meant to scare the lady, and then everybody in line jumped. And
they all needed it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, before we go any further, greetings, everybody. Happy Friday. And I just want to say we're glad you're all here. We're glad you're watching. We have a big announcement to make at the end of the show today, so I'm very excited about that.
James Inman? No.
It's a big announcement.
Guest.
It's a big announcement.
All right,
we'll make it at the end. You guys are just going to have to wait until the end of the program to hear the announcement. I would write it down.
Or we can do it like 10 minutes after the end of the program. 10 minutes later, go, well, we're leading up to the big announcement, but hang on. Oh, we got to go. But if you'd like to
tune in next week.
Speaking of,
this is going to be a real announcement. I promise. It's good. It's very exciting.
Well, then I'm breaking out the glassware.
Oh boy!
There was a fucking there was like 2 people at the post office the other day. I delivered mailed some edibles to a friend out somewhere else. Well, yeah, not him.
No. Oh,
yeah.
no.
Look who's on the podcast.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Did you see James Inman was wearing that Issues with Andy shirt back in 8 years ago when it wasn't even cool?
Oh, yeah.
Ahead of his time.
That's from the Cape Fear Comedy Festival that we premiered the Unbookables, and Inman went, so it was like a really shitty spot. Like nobody was going to be at the premiere of the Unbookables because it was the opening night of a comedy festival. All the comics just wanted to hang out and get to know each other. I think they did like a long open mic or whatever. So Inman goes down there when he realizes nobody's going to go to the Unbookables movie premiere. And he goes down and he insults every comic.
Shocking.
Everybody. You want to see what real comedy looks like, you fucking amateur pieces of shit? He's like, the opposite of a Pied Piper,
An exterminator?
Yeah. He's like, he went down and it's like maybe some of them might have fumbled up there eventually, but he went down and he insulted everybody in the comedy festival. Yeah. We had like 6 or 7 people at it, and it was a fucking, it was just like the Unbookables taping experience. It was a fucking nightmare. The driver who never talked to us during the Unbookables much, I went, and because it was such a lame, there was like 6 people in the thing, and the driver and Jeff were there. And James, who, went down to bring people up, he was our carnival barker, and he ran, there was like 6 or 7 people in there. And then I just went to, I laid down on a couch that was underneath the screen and went like I was.
That's called the stage?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it was a stage or whatever, but I wasn't trying to disrespect the film. I just lost interest in it.
Wait a minute. You didn't try to disrespect the film by laying down and falling asleep during the movie on stage. Listen,
I'm with Andy on this. I've seen the film. Falling asleep during it is about the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
It's not meant as a statement. Yeah. It's not an intentional indictment of the film. It's just what happens when you watch it.
I got the one time I really enjoyed a screening of that. Somebody gave me Opana, and I snorted Opana, and it's a real serious narcotic. It's one of those like fentanyl where you don't want to do that, Opana. I might be saying it wrong, but I was snorted that, and it was like
just when we got the critical information on how to do Opana safely.
Yeah. You mix it with diabetes meds and you're cool. Whatever. But we both did some Opana, and then I sat in the back. It was up in the Seattle area, so there was a lot of people there to see it, friends of Jeff and stuff. And I sat in the back, and I really liked it that time. But then I found out that you don't want to do that Opana very much. It's like a heavy duty heroin, or it's a knockout drug.
Yeah.
But when I mixed that with watching it, it was like, maybe that's why heroin is, people who hate themselves or whatever. You do heroin and you're like, it's all right.
This is better.
Yeah, it's all right. I don't have the energy to hate or whatever. But that's what So when I wasn't like, oh, fuck this film, but Inman had run off anybody to come watch it, except for, and so it was just basically crew, or it was, those two, me and Inman and about 3 or 4 other people that watched this fucking thing. And then, so I was sleeping on the couch, and then that guy fucking yelled at me, and he looked like a tweaker. He's kind of a, remember the driver of the van?
Barely,
yeah. He never said anything. He was trying to be Silent Bob, but he's like, had like, pirate teeth.
Hey, Andy, talking about him, I got some questions from the Patreon that I dug, and someone threw one in regarding the driver.
Yeah, Steve, his name was.
All right.
Yeah.
Did he get a bunch of tickets?
No, he got pulled over. Here was the thing, though. It was like he was the sketchiest looking one of us, by far. Yeah, not by far, but, he was the head of Inman.
By far.
Yeah, by far. And he drove, and he was completely sober, and
that was his job. His job was to drive. He's not a comic.
But he's the type of guy that you would think would get pulled over, and he's like, well, that guy's gone, next driver up or whatever, He's, warrants or, something, or just his, his demeanor. But he was cool and calm, and he got pulled over, I think 3 times, like twice in Texas, and then in Oklahoma.
That was the question. Why was he getting pulled over so many times?
That was part of one of my issues with the whole project, was that the reason he got pulled over so many times is because he was driving a stupid fucking green, dumb, hippie van around. Yeah. And the whole idea created by Jeff, who's making the movie, that we need to have this wacky van that everyone rides in, to show how wacky we all are,
weren't we?
We would have never driven around in a piece of shit like that. And, it was like, before there were, or at least before I understood how reality shows work, that documentary was made like a reality show. It was supposed to be a fly on the wall thing, but it was really like a reality show. Jeff set it up to be like, all right, we're going to put him in a crazy van. They had the catchphrase, get in the van. They had that ready to go before they did anything. We would have never played those gigs we played. Like, those were set up to be that. Like, they tried to, it was like they were afraid we weren't going to be good in the movie. So they wanted to make the situation be funny. Yeah, and instead it just made it worse, in my opinion. So
I remember once there was like, "Hey, would you go bring your luggage back up the stairs?" Like, no, fuck no,
The only way that's funny is if the real documentary is another camera guy filming the camera guy trying to trick Andy into carrying his luggage up the stairs 4 times. Now that would be good.
And then capturing Andy kicking the luggage downstairs when he's angry. Fuck you.
We should have did like Michael Jordan did with all that footage. It's like, you can tape everything, but we'll revisit it in 20 years.
We'll see.
Now because all the stuff behind the scenes and stuff, all the infighting and all the bullshit and all us talking, it's like, a camera on them, a camera on us. They were never around when the fucking really weird shit was going on.
Neither were you, Andy.
Well, I knew that's because that's because I knew how to kill the lab, and I go, ditch the cameras. It's like
But that was certainly like the best example of what you're talking about, Shaylee, was that there's one of the famous clips from the show is of Rouse on stage with his, talking about what happened to him, with his face, his head all, scabbed up and, scraped. And he starts telling this story about what happened to him, which, a side note, of course he has a bit about what happened to him when he cut his face up, because he did that a lot. So he was ready with that bit. But they didn't have any footage of him doing that to himself because they weren't there when he did it, because they thought it would be funnier to drive us around at 11 o'clock in the morning in a green van. But the real funny shit happens at 3 o'clock in the morning when after party Andy is in full effect and fucking Sean Rouse is growling and biting people. I mean, that's when it's...
Yeah, there's a buddy flick. It's like that emo and Doug. I'm sorry, my emo pecked your face.
Emo.
Oh, you're talking about that Rod? The guy with
that commercial where that guy, it's like fucking that guy with the
you're
fucking
talking about an emu, not an emo.
Yeah, I thought it was emo.
Hey man, let's get some coffee.
I was like, did Emo Phillips do something with Stanhope?
That's what I thought too. It's like, oh wow.
That would be great, by the way. I think that's fantastic.
At the Bridgetown Festival a few years ago, Henry Phillips was there, and Emo Phillips was there, and I got the two of them in a picture. It didn't turn out very well, but I was like, man, this would be a great,
the Phillips brothers.
Yeah, the fabulous Phillips brothers, Emo and Henry.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Emo Phillips is still to this day one of the best stand-up comedians alive. Mm-hmm. He is so fucking funny and so good.
Yeah.
He does that show here. They don't do it in LA as much. Well, they don't do any shows now, obviously. But a couple years ago, there was a show that Provenza had a part in creating with Troy Conrad called Setlist Show, where
those are great.
You go up on stage blind, and there's a TV screen on stage, and you're standing up there, and something comes on the screen, and that's your topic. It's like this is your set list, but you're seeing it for the first time at the same time the audience is seeing it, and then you just got to riff a set. And Emo is the fucking absolute best at it. He can they can give him something, and he'll look at it for a second, and then he'll have like a one-line fucking joke. Like I don't know how. Like, it takes everybody else. They have to start talking about it and kind of get working through some shit. And maybe they can make that funny somehow and figure out how to make it into a bit. And Emo just fucking bang. I have to find some clips of
he's such
Emo doing set lists.
He's such an odd character too. Like I hung out with him. He had some like a skin cancer situation or something. He had an awkwardly placed Band-Aid. I can't remember if it was on the bridge of his nose. I think it was like it went the tip of his nose was covered with his Band-Aid, and he just went with it,
Yeah.
No awkward.
It's the Sean Rouse.
Yeah.
You're not gonna not go up.
Yeah.
And the real way is to be able to either not say anything the whole time or make it funny.
Did you ever try that? I did. I bombed on that set list shit. Did you do that?
I did it. I did it a bunch of times. I love that show.
Yeah, I just couldn't. My kid was
tricky.
There too. Yeah.
You've got to there is a mindset you have to after you've done it a couple of times, you kind of figure out a way to do it. But part of it is that what you don't want to do is just immediately start talking once you see the topic. Just take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, as soon as something comes up on the screen, people just want to be like, they want to go, and they just start talking. And then they talk themselves into an area that they can't get themselves out of, where if they would have just not said anything for 5 seconds and looked at what the topic is and gone, oh, I could say this. And then boom,
Yeah, look at Emo.
Yeah, Setlist show.
Boy, he was fucking hot back in the day.
Little Dorothy Hamill cut there. I should talk.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, he does have a Dorothy Hamill.
Hey, did he show up at Doug's anniversary comedy anniversary?
No, that was a different old school guy, right? The
who was that? I'm
guy
trying to remember
he was
his name.
from that talent show. He was on that talent show, and he had a bunch
America's Got Talent,
America's Got Talent. I think it was America's Got Talent.
Was he on the one with Ed McMahon?
Seattle guy, old school. Fuck it. He's like a one-liner guy.
Yeah,
that guy.
But he was a guy, as I recall, Doug talking about him. He was a guy that was the first person.
Slappy.
He's the first guy that Doug and the other guys heard someone do a street joke.
Right.
Like, because they were insular in that, like, they were just in Vegas doing their own thing. There weren't these guys, and he was the first road comic that kind of went out and did comedy away from, like the established places. And they're like, whoa. And he did I don't come to where you work and slap the spatula out of your. He did something like that.
I was just thinking.
And they're like, whoa!
Yeah. The first time I heard that, I was like, man, I gotta get this guy's name.
This guy's brilliant.
Hey, can I work with you, man?
I
could learn a lot about Slurpee machines and.
I thought that's what you were gonna say. His name was Slurpee Machine.
Yeah, I worked with a guy. I think me and Stanhope one time. There was just a guy on the bill named Ding Dong.
Andy, I feel like your shtick of having hilarious names for your stories, I feel like you're either running out of them or you didn't put enough work into this week. You're just like, all right, Ding Dong. It's going to be.
Well, there was, I was thinking of because of the church, we know there was Hoot Looney and his wife Ina, and then there was the Rose. I haven't mentioned. Yeah, Ina Looney was fucking batshit crazy too. She would lose her mind.
I mean, it's very on brand for Ina Looney.
She would
it's
lose her mind.
I'm a Looney.
I know.
It's like that. Ina's one of those names where like you forever. It's like no, it's Ina.
Yeah.
Ina.
I thought
Irene? Is it Irene?
Ina. I remember her being really intense as a kid, but now you just call that like bipolar, or she would fucking lose her mind. I rode with them to church camp or whatever. I was in the back and Hoot driving, and Ina would lose her shit when Hoot would hit those middle reflectors.
And the cat eyes.
And then she just starts fucking yapping at him and yelling and shit. And I was like, it was an experience just riding the back.
So she's in the passenger seat, and Hoot's driving. See, now my guess is this. I'm on Ina's side here. My guess is that there has been some times when Hoot has drifted into the other lane. A few too many times. Ina's got a little fucking PTSD. Yeah, she's like fucking better get his attention.
He seemed unshakable back in the day when I was just when I was a church kid, it's like he could put up with all that shit. But when I was working for him on the green chain, he fucking changed his demeanor, man. He didn't. He didn't care.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
So listen to this bullshit. Okay, you get hired at the mill. You work 30 days. You join the union, and you wear a red hard hat, for 30 days. Once you're in the union, you get rid of the hard hat. But if you get hired as a summer employee, you have to join the union and wear the hat all fucking summer, 90 days. And I found that to be bullshit. I had a red hard hat, and it was
Let me interrupt you real quick. Was there any chance you'd make the full 90 days anyway?
No, I made the 90. I made it every summer. Right. But I shook.
Wait, repeatedly? Yeah. You went back at multiple summers, and they made you wear the hard hat like a newbie.
He joined the union 4 times. He was paying 4 union dues.
Yeah, I made 3 summers.
It's fair. I got to pay four union dues. Well, you got 4 union cards, so you got to pay 4 times. Yeah.
So, and the union never did. There was no protest to be had by the summer help or whatever, so I made my, I think it was around the time when Platoon came out or whatever, but I just started writing, like I wrote Wood Killer on my hat, and I started hanging doodads. After 30 days, it's like, fuck this shit. It's hot in the mill. And
so you're like Jim McMahon writing fucking Roselle on his fucking white headband at the fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah, it wasn't
protest.
I wasn't having it, and then I let other people to start writing on their helmets or what hats, and then like I worked for Hoot a few summers, and then I basically that was the A team. I felt like Hoot was day shift. Hoot was like he was a white hat, and he could I could fuck around a little bit because of the family connection with the Loonies. So
Andy, the color coding in the hats signified levels.
Yeah. Like I was like
white hats.
I was I would act like I was a hard worker when I would sniff a white hat. I didn't even necessarily need to see them. I just smelled white hat. Like, oh fuck, brass on deck or whatever, and I would start fucking hustling.
Brass on deck.
Yeah, like, but so I think I told you this one, but Tony Meyer was this guy. Tony Meyer, I didn't like. He was a fucking, I still don't like him. Tony, if you're listening, I think I blocked you on Facebook, but Tony worked across from me, and he was a fucking dullard. He's probably he was a lifetime. He wasn't a summer employee, but he was a recent graduate, and he was a lifer at the mill at the time. And Tony worked across from me, and there were 2 separate conveyor belts with the wood and shit, and I could see his thing, but I wasn't responsible for it. And Tony, he'd get high, and he was, it was like he didn't pay attention, and shit would start fucking up on his end, and I would see it, and I could go, holy shit, I could be a hero and save all this wood, or I could let all these big pieces of wood continue to slide sideways into the stacker and fuck it up. And once it starts fucking up, it's like, holy shit, if it keeps going, and then it's, well, the white hats will call it disaster. But
Does that mean you get like an hour off while they fucking fix the machine and shit?
Oh, sure, yeah. It's like, hey, it's about 15 minutes of chaos and then 2 hours of shutdown.
Norma Ray hitting the buzzer to stop the line.
Right. Well, yeah. And one time I got my finger up into that thing trying to correct something, and I'm glove and finger trapped up in there. It was before Def Leppard's tragedy, but I was like, you are trying to get my fingers out of there, and I yarded it out, and my fucking glove stayed up in there, and my fingers fucking hurt, and so I always like just let the machines do what the machines do after that.
You're totally right to do that.
Wait, you didn't say anything? There was no incident report or anything like that?
Well, no.
Somebody asked him if you tell him.
I didn't get kicked out of the union.
Yeah.
They didn't want you anyway, Andy.
I don't want to get bounced down to a green hat. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Green liberal motherfucker.
Right.
They shit beat out of you in the parking lot.
I can't lose fingers. I'm going to community college.
You need at least one.
Just a thumb to get there. Yeah, so I let that shit go, and it was fucking fun to me. It was like hilarious, but it was like there was nobody I could really laugh with about it, especially Tony Meyer. But so like the wood's just stacked up.
What about the mute? Did you?
No, this was a different mill. When I worked at GP,
that's right. Yeah, that's
GP
right.
there. When I worked at GP, there was some semblance of order. There was a union. When I worked for Howard Cookie Head,
all right, I take it back. After Ding Dong, you're back on your game.
Organic. That's organic.
Well, that was my brother. My brother David knew that guy from back in the day, and he called him Cookie Head. And there was an embarrassing story about it, which I wish I'd have known when I got fired, because I could have added to the situation.
And another thing, Howard.
Yeah.
And also, wait a minute. So, you didn't know the name Cookie Head when you got fired. You only found it out later.
Yeah.
That's a shame. That is a real shame.
Yeah, I told my brother about the guy. I go, and he goes, "What's his name?" And I told him, and he goes, "Yeah, because it was the guy." He told me, every time it's in the same situation though. When I'd let wood go, it was like I was stepping on cereal working at the store.
Yeah.
But when Tony Meyer, it was just like he was a dick and he was on his chain and I was, we're both pulling our own chain, and I'm not responsible for his shit at all, right? But there was a gap between the green chain and the other parts of the mill. So I was just like Radar O'Reilly when I was just like, oh, here comes some white hats.
You could tell when the fucking helicopters full of fucking bodies were about to.
And I guess Tony had.
Before you can hear the rotor.
Yeah. What was it? What did they call them on MASH?
What choppers?
Yeah. Did they? It wasn't choppers, was it? Was it something else?
Radar said something.
Yeah.
That dude
you would always know.
That dude used to do local ads here for an RV place back in the day. Gary Berghoff.
Gary Berghoff from Ottumwa, Iowa.
And I ran into Winchester once at brunch. There you go.
One of my favorite things that I found out about Radar when I was young is one of his hands is fucked up, and they hide it in every shot that he's in.
Like this
and so you can never see it, and once you know that, you watch MASH and you'll notice they do the clipboard. Something is always hiding one of his hands.
They didn't do anything with that wart in the middle of his head, huh?
That was distraction. That was to keep you from looking at his head. They actually glued that on before the shoot.
The wart's a red herring.
Yeah, actually, that wart was also used on Ginger in Gilligan's Island.
That wart had a great agent.
Famous. I think it was UTA. Was it?
It was with 3 arts.
Oh, 3 arts. Oh, I caught him at an open mic once.
Yeah, I did. Next level shit, dude.
Yeah, Judah Friedlander refused to go on after the war.
We're like, hey, I thought you were the world champ. He's like, I still can.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. No one said he was here. I turned down another set somewhere else to come here. Shit.
The war's here?
When my dad could walk.
The war's here? Tonight?
before my dad could not walk, before God, leashed out at him or lashed out, my dad would walk. We'd do our paper route, and he had a nickname for everybody because my dad just did, it's just funny. And he'd there's the guy who had the barber shop would give us a piece of juicy fruit gum. So he was Wrigley gum Cagley or whatever. My dad just Bill's place was a fucking weird men's only bar. And it was like all the porn like as a kid you'd go in and drop the newspapers and go, oh my God, there's 30 different swank versions of swank, it's a dude's only club.
Slowly, like take your time.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, and then it's actually a funny old school clip of this bar, but it was like a stag club they called it, and I think they just, changed a few letters that were inconvenient on what they probably did there. Anyway, we would deliver newspapers, and my dad had nicknames. But one of the people
looking at women.
Well, and it's like I didn't know, he'd just call them different things or whatever. But one of the women, there was a lady, and he called her Wart Woman. And it was obvious, So you see that cookie behind Shaylee with the chips. That's not even close to the number of warts this lady had on her face. So it was like, so some of them were pretty obvious, like Wart Woman. Zacchaeus, I had to do some Bible research, and he was a wee little man or something.
Was a wee little man.
A wee little man was he. Till he got up in that sycamore tree.
Yeah. See, I feel like you learned this when you were at the quarry listening to the ladies' Christian radio station. You're learning about Zacchaeus, and it all comes together. You're like, oh,
well,
that's why Dad called him Zacchaeus.
I think Zacchaeus? Ultimately it was just, I think it was I don't know if it was in the Bible or it was a song I learned at church camp.
Both of those things are probably true. Zacchaeus from the Bible, I don't remember the story, but he was a little dude, but
a little feller.
Probably a dwarf.
And the song Andy's talking about is How I Know It. It's because when before I was divorced and we were raising our kids, my ex is super Christian-y. Like we were always had Bible hymns, tapes of them for the kids to listen to. And Zacchaeus was a wee little man. A wee little man was he. Was a fucking
climbed up in a sycamore tree.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a famous. Is that what it is? Yeah, it's a famous parable.
Tax collector in Jericho, mentioned in the Gospel of Luke, a descendant of Abraham.
I think Jesus defended him because I think they were fucking with him. I think they were picking on him. How about that's my guess? Is that
an example of Jesus's personal earthly mission to bring salvation to the lost? Tax collectors were despised as traitors and as being corrupt.
So, yeah. Jesus stuck up for him, but he was little.
Yeah, so that would be my dad's reference point on nicknames for people. But Wart Woman, that was just like, okay, this one, that was a gimme. It was that was so I could catch on to how this works,
Right.
The Wart Woman is level one.
You recognize a pattern.
Yeah, and then I forget the name. There's a lady that he doused with the car several times, and he nicknamed her, and it had something to do with the dousing. So
wait, the thing where he drove next to the curb and splashed?
That's what. Yeah, my dad called it dousing, and he only used that term twice. Once when he doused people in the car, and then when a cat was hunting birds, and my dad didn't like that. My dad didn't like nature. Two things my dad didn't like is the wind and cats hunting birds. Those two things outraged him, and he always got pissed off about it. So
did he ever tell you why?
Well, because my dad would try to read the newspaper every day. It would come at 3:00, and then the wind would come at 3:30, and he would sit out there in his wheelchair like a fucking boat, like a fucking boat with a sail, or whatever.
Spinnaker out, the big one, the big billowy one.
So the wind would start hitting the newspaper, and then my dad would just fucking fling it and get mad. Like, that's why I don't like the sound of crinkling, I think.
Oh, there it is.
Because my dad would start crinkling it.
To crinkling bags or anything. It drives him nuts.
It would just reminds him of his dad's anxiety every afternoon.
The same as
and then here. Right after that, the beatings came.
No, my dad. This is funny. I don't think I use this in my comedy way back. I don't think it's ever. But my dad wanted to hit the kids, but there was a certain point he wouldn't cross the stairway. He's like in a wheelchair, and but I do remember a couple of times
where bring back all of your.
I know. It's,
when you actually gave a shit.
I know. No, I'm gonna hire some nerd who watched every episode of Issues to cobble together an act.
I already got it all written down. I am your nerd.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of shit like that. But I
didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
That was actually kind of a treat. Like he was pissed off at me, and he'd go, and he would be down at the bottom of the stairs, and like I'm not coming down to get grabbed and hit.
It's funny though. It's funny though to me that your dad hates the wind. And why does he hate the wind? Because he used to try to read the newspaper outside, and it would always blow the paper over. And there's nothing worse. You're like unfolding it, and the fucking God damn it. It keeps back, and then he's in a wheelchair, so it's like spinning him or spinning him around.
Here's another thing that really set my dad off. Like if he could have turned into the Hulk, what would have turned him into the Hulk was when I got new Levi pants, and then I would those shrink to fit, right? And I would get they didn't fit unless you shrunk them. And then my dad he did all the laundry. He was handy capable. But he didn't like doing it, and he didn't take on the household responsibilities out of interest in it. He was just put in a wheelchair because God hated him, and so he did the laundry, and he could never keep that fucking machine. Was always go off balance. Which meant the old man had to go in there and crawl upwards into the machine.
Poor guy's in a chair, and he's got to crawl up into a top-loading washer.
Because everything would get to one side, so it would go thump, thump.
Sure, he's like those little people we're talking about.
Sadly ahead of his time, because the front-loading washer is all you can get now. They don't even fucking make the top-loaders.
Yeah,
this would be his fucking time to shine.
Yeah, so the old man would have to wrestle all these clothes out to get the machine back in balance, and oh man, he hated it. And once that happened, he would just throw all the pants out, and then he'd drag them out. Yeah.
So his theory was that it was the fucking Levi's pants that were throwing the fucking washer in.
Heavy when they get wet. I agree with you.
It really was.
It's a very random act.
But remember,
everything goes to the side.
Those tough skin knee pads.
Well, he also could.
He's thick,
He'd have to hoist them up. He was like Billy Barty, on a little stool throwing pants up there, and he probably couldn't get a load. He probably, I'm not criticizing the old man's laundry, but he probably couldn't make a level load if he had to.
You can't see where they're landing.
He couldn't make a level load to save his foot from diabetes, and it pissed him off, and he dragged my pants out as the culprit.
He had to chuck the clothes in like a circle. He's like, I'll throw this one in the back. This next one goes to the right a little bit. Throw this one over here.
And we lived
wet Levi's is like moving a wet rug.
Yeah.
It's burdensome, and
remember when we stayed at Ralphie May's house?
A guy who's leaning on one elbow trying to fucking huck stuff into a fucking barrel.
Remember when we stayed at Ralphie May's house, Shaylee? Did we stay? Yeah, we stayed at Ralphie May's because I slept in his kid's bed. Yeah, but when we stayed there, I did laundry, and I pulled out a pair of Ralphie because he had a load in the wash.
He had to wash his pants.
I understand what my dad was up against. I tried to pull out Ralphie May's pants, and it fucking hurt my back.
It's like a clown's handkerchief. It just keeps going. Like pulling
No, you're like a circus worker trying to get the tent loaded up at the end. Like you're just cutting more and more onto your shoulder.
That's why you can't be in a hurry when you're breaking down a circus. I was just trying to yard these pants out, and they were hung up on other.
All they are is in a hurry.
And the amount.
That's why you need a lot of people.
The amount of stuff that Ralphie May kept in his pockets I was like, holy shit, it's like 5 lighters, and I guess he couldn't find shit in his pockets. Like, it's like this bottomless pit he'd put fucking shit in. It was like, it was like this big fucking machine full of lighters and pants all wrapped up into one thing, and I was trying to like a tug of war against the man versus machine. It's like fucking old John Henry just trying to get my fucking clear the machine. He had to have a guy live in his house just to pull his pants out of the fucking washing machine. Ralphie May had to write, or he had to craft jokes to his own act. I almost said write jokes, but
yeah, I would have had to have Todd edit that. We don't lie on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I fucked up on that Duke thing.
My God, that's
when I heard about the greatest game ever played, I combined 1992 and 2001.
Here's the best part about our fans. I hate saying that word. People that watch listeners. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to get mishki. Nobody complained or noticed that we got the college team wrong that played in the 2001. There wasn't one, because I thought, I could put something in the comments to be like, hey, we already know that wasn't Christian Laettner's team. No one even brought it up. Yeah. And of all the things people bust your balls for, nobody there was out of the couple thousand people that watch, not one person went, hey, Christian Laettner was 10 years before fucking not one.
The resentment to the funny part of the story, and it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But the resentment was real,
and also funny.
But also nobody in our group knew. Like there could have been some people who even
me or
knew.
Chad, no way.
I didn't. I follow sports, and it didn't even occur to me that was.
You know what got me?
I just found it funny in context.
Yeah. What got me was I was watching that Jordan thing, and I was like, wait, I saw the Dream Team when they played a bunch of South American teams in Portland before they went to the thing, and I was like, wait a minute. I went to that in '93. My father-in-law took, there's some. It's like, no way could that be the same?
Was on that team.
Yeah, Laettner was in college 12 years. This doesn't make sense. But I combined 2 Duke championships and years of resentment, Well,
see, here's the thing: had you been allowed to go to that Final Four, God damn it, you'd remember who played.
Yeah, I was like, there was an annoying white guy that played.
Kathy's fault.
Yeah. And I didn't even research whether she's still alive, but we did see each other again at my mother-in-law's funeral, and we just kind of social distanced. It's like, you took my tickets, I killed your lawn. You stay over there, we'll both honor the dead.
And Andy, when were you at Ralphie May's house with Shaylee and Doug? You guys, where was that? In LA or?
Nashville.
We had a sleepover with Bird Cloud, and I think Junior was there. Yeah, Junior stopped.
Yeah, we stayed at Ralphie's house like a day before he was even there, I think. And then it was him and his manager. Remember there was an incident with the tour bus
guy.
Yeah, Andy's the pants guy. I remember there was an incident with the tour bus where like at one point I was looking at the manager. I'm like, you guys are talking way too much. This seems like an insurance thing, and I don't want to be called in on this. Like there was a fire by the side of the road, and fuck that thing. I never wanted it. We should get rid of it. Let's burn it. And then all of a sudden they're telling a story of how the thing started burning on the side of the road. and then they bought us a ton of barbecue. They bought $150 worth of barbecue. And Bird Cloud was there, and it was
the 7 deadly sins. It was the 7 deadly sin barbecue. Bird Cloud, Ralphie May barbecue. Ralphie May's bulldog, his road manager, his pants.
Ralphie is gluttony.
I got into a smoke off with Ralphie
gluttony.
May.
Well, there's definitely lust.
Yeah. Fucking Bird Cloud. That's when I got introduced to him.
And
Greed.
pride.
Greed, insurance fraud, greed.
Pride. Yeah. I think you
Fried
might be
food.
right.
We got 4.
Well, I got
We can
into
make
right
up
up.
the
We
rest.
don't even
remember
know
I got
all
into a
of them.
smoke off with Ralphie. We weren't. It wasn't even like it was just like it was like Kobe and Michael Jordan playing hoops, and you're just like, oh, all of a sudden it gets real intense. It's like me and Ralphie just smoking weed back and forth. I was like, this isn't gonna stop.
No.
At all. And he kept loading up bowl after bowl, telling other people's story after other people's
He
story.
was telling stories.
Oh, it was so great. And
with Doug in the story. And
right,
I'm like
yeah.
looking at Doug, and it's like, this is not even close.
Right. Yeah. I love
But
stories
Doug
where
just
you,
listens and then tells
yeah.
him at the end, it's like, yeah, that didn't happen.
I love it when somebody's
It's a good
telling a
story,
story
though.
where the best stories are where you have firsthand knowledge they're full of shit right from the beginning of it, so you just listen. But we just kept
we're
smoking and
Catmandu.
smoking.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. No, you can only, that's what like a married couple will ruin each other's stories. Well, Ralphie, you just let him go because it's like this is all fictional.
Yeah.
You can't get
Well, you
mad.
want to hear how it changed since the last time you heard it.
Yeah.
Right.
None of this is in
Punched it
historical
up.
context. Understand? Based on true stories. No.
Inspired by true events.
Inspired by true events. That's what Ralphie made. That's what his whole thing. I wish I had a pair of his pants so I could scam sandwich places. But when we were in
You're gonna be
Come on, let that sit.
you're gonna be the new Jared.
Oh, that's so fucking great. Just moved into town. Want to tell you, the last place I lived,
Hey.
all these big fucking big honkers. Yep.
Hey,
I love the
hey,
Subway.
campus sandwiches. Let me introduce myself. I'm your best customer.
Andy
Hold
walking
the
in with
mayonnaise. Hold the
giant
mayonnaise.
giant pants over his shoulder, asking to speak to the manager of the sandwich shop.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
Ralphie May don't need a handler anymore, but what I would suggest is like a tray, like when you're flying or when you used to be able to fly and then you'd put stuff in a tray or whatever. That's what Ralphie May's laundry. You should just like put all the lighters and whatever the fuck he had.
Going through TSA where you got to empty your pocket.
Yeah.
The tray, the fold down tray on the.
And I've never seen, I know I get squirrely and I'll have 2 or 3 lighters in my pocket, but I've never seen lighters come out of every pocket in a pair of pants. What's going on with you, man? Why were you so worried about fire being taken away all at once?
Maybe he was one of those guys that stole everybody else's bucket
Yeah,
lighters.
it sounds like it.
My theory is
Maybe he treated
world.
he treated lighters like bits.
well, and
Maybe his arms were short and his pants pockets were deep, and he couldn't
there you
get,
go.
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
couldn't get
He
all the
needed
way
the-
down to the
He
lighter.
needed the first few lighters just to fucking fill
To
up the
buoy
space.
up the
so
other one, yeah.
the lighter he was going to use, his lighter, he wouldn't use someone else's. He put his lighter on top of that. Now he can reach it.
Yeah, the Zippo's the first one you grab.
A lighter
Yeah.
ladder.
Lighter. Oh, God damn it. I love you guys. So I know that we're reaching the 1 hour mark, and that feels like a podcast to me. So I think it's time we make our big announcement.
We can quit.
Yeah, we can quit. Yeah, you can tell that guy to fire up the weed whacker.
Well,
Probably been going the whole time. We can't even hear it, and it's a big problem for Andy. Oh, that's a nice looking yard.
Man, that's
Oh,
beautiful.
wait. I know. Look at that shit. I was trying to point it the other way though. Mr. Squishles is getting up from his nap.
Hi, Mr. Squishles. I feel the same way, dude.
I know.
Very often.
Jesus.
That's me before I fucking have coffee. Just sitting in a chair, looking around at the floor, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on.
And he's sleeping on
Maybe I
that.
should try coffee because I just do that all day long.
He's
Yeah.
sleeping on
Get
that.
up and just sit there and stare at the floor.
He's sleeping on that thing I found out at the rock place. And I'm carrying all the poison oak I got from taking a dump and
That's right.
jerking off and that shit.
Totally worth
Yeah, I'm done with that.
All right, so here it is, everybody. The big Issues with Andy announcement. It is my great privilege and honor to announce that we now have a Patreon. We have a Patreon page. So if you would like to be an Issues with Andy Patreon member, a patron, I think they call it a subscriber. Go to Issues with Andy on Patreon and sign up. And if you do that, you will be able to hang out with us after the show, because we're going to end the show. Thanks for watching, but we're going to keep going on Patreon. We're going to make another drink, and we'll hang out for a little while more. So thanks. We love you. If you're not going to keep going with us, we will see you again on Tuesday.
Oh, Erickson, hold on 1 second. Wasn't there another part to that as well?
Maybe. What have I forgotten? Go ahead and say it.
Audio.
Oh, yeah. That's also true.
I think that's a big part.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you, sir. Also, for all of the people who yell at us and say, why don't you put out an audio version of this podcast? And we always say, well, just don't watch. And they always say, but still you should. If that's what you want and that's what you need, and you don't need to look at our stupid faces and find out what the backgrounds are and where Andy is, which part of his yard he is violating, then you can get an audio-only version of this show if you are a Patreon subscriber. So thanks, and we'll if not, we'll see you on Tuesday. I love you guys. Later.